One of the strangest periods in English and British history was when King James II stepped aside and left his throne in favour of Queen Mary II and William III, the Prince of Orange. This was known as the Glorious Revolution, and the Catholic King James II was forced into exile, and James's removal from power prevented another civil war. James lived out the rest of his life in France, following attempts to regain power, but he was given protection by the French king, and he lived inside of royal chateaux and died at the age of 67 from a brain hemorrhage. But the story of what happened to his body and remains following his death is shocking and bizarre. His heart was removed and was placed inside of a silver locket, and his brain was then cut out of his head. However, the rest of his body was then desecrated and destroyed as his tomb was raided and attacked during the French Revolution. And what happened to his remains following this is a mystery to this day. Join us today as we look at the King of England's corpse destroyed during the French Revolution. And to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. King James II was the son of the executed Charles I, and he grew up in exile following the English Civil War, and his brother, King Charles II, was restored to the throne. James was a skilled commander of the Royal Navy, but there was a huge problem inside of England and Scotland. This was that James, in 1669, converted to Catholicism, and this caused a lot of controversy, as for many years Catholics had been marginalised and Protestantism was favoured by the kings following the English Reformation. Many people, due to James II's religion, feared they would be persecuted. At the age of 51, on the 6th of February 1685, James II succeeded to the throne after his brother Charles I had no legitimate heirs. Charles had plenty of illegitimate children, including one son who would later arrange a rebellion against James, but no one could take the throne through legal routes, leaving James as the heir. He was, to begin with, seen as a strong monarch, as he had around 20,000 men-at-arms in his kingdom who would fight for him, and he also was very wealthy. He wanted to use Parliament well, but as mentioned, he faced opposition from the very start. The Duke of Monmouth, James Scott, the before-mentioned illegitimate son of Charles II, raised a rebellion known as Monmouth's Rebellion. And this was easily crushed and defeated by the royalist forces at the Battle of Sedgemoor in 1685. He also ordered severe punishments against rebels, and Monmouth was subjected to a harrowing and botched execution at the hands of executioner Jack Ketch in London on Tower Hill. Also, during James II's reign, severe punishment for crime was ramped up under the oversight of the infamous Lord Chief Justice, Judge Jeffreys. James II also tried to promote Roman Catholicism in England, and he sacked many people who went against him with regards to his religious reforms, and he also placed Catholics into important and powerful positions in the military, and many people felt alienated by James II's policies. Bishops asked James to reconsider his ideas. There were fears that a Catholic dynasty would be established following James' second wife, Mary of Modena, giving birth to a son, and with this a group of Protestant nobles then appealed to William of Orange, the husband of James's Protestant daughter Mary, to invade. William landed with an army in Devon in November of 1688, and James had completely lost his support and nerve, and he fled abroad, abdicating his throne. William and Mary were then crowned as joint monarchs. James did attempt to take his throne back, and in the March of 1689 he landed in Ireland with support of the French, and he raised an army. But this was soundly beaten at the Battle of Boyne by William's forces in the July of 1690. After this he returned to exile in France, knowing the cause to regain the crown was over. And he settled into life inside of royal chateaux and houses. Some of James's supporters tried to assassinate William III to put James II back on the throne, but the plot failed, and James was made even less popular. James was allegedly offered the position as the elected King of Poland, but he refused this, as he was concerned that this might reduce his chances of ever becoming King of England again. In his final years, James II lived in isolation, and at the age of 67, on the 16th of September 1701, he died at Saint-Germain-en-Laye. He had hoped that he would one day restore his line to the throne, and that following his death his body would one day be sent back to Westminster Abbey to be buried. Because of this, James II's body was not buried, and it was placed inside one of the chapels of the Chapel of St. Edmund in the convent of English Benedictines in Paris. He was interred inside of a wooden coffin, and inside was an inner lead lining and also a further wooden coffin protecting the remains. Those who saw the king's coffin noted that it was covered with black velvet, but during the embalming process, James's organs were removed and they were all distributed in different manners. His heart was cut out of his body, and this was placed inside of a silver gilt locket or box, and this was then given to the convent. His brain was also removed from his skull, and this was placed in a lead casket and kept at Scots College in Paris. His entrails were removed, and these were placed in 2 gilt urns and were sent to different French chapels. And the flesh from his right arm had even been cut out, and this was given to the English Augustinian nuns of Paris. What was left of the king remained inside of the wooden coffin inside the chapel. However, during the French Revolution, the king's coffin was broken into, and his body was shown on display. The French Revolution brought a huge amount of chaos and terror to the nation. The King of France and Queen would lose their heads on the guillotine inside of Paris, but anything that represented the monarchy in any form was attacked. People were guillotined for just a suspicion of being a monarchist, and this meant that James II, despite being a foreign monarch, was at risk of desecration inside of his coffin. During this time, graves were disturbed and ransacked, as were churches and religious buildings. Despite the embalming having taken place, the elements did their work quickly. James II had been dead just under a century by this point, but it was said that the body was relatively well preserved. Following the public display for a day, the body of James II was taken away, and it was never seen again. It's believed that this was a symbol of monarchy, and that it was thrown into a common pit or a grave like the remains of the other French kings whose tombs had been attacked at St. Denis. The other body parts also disappeared, but the monument to James inside the Scott College where his brain was placed still exists. The box containing his internal organs, or his viscera as it was known, were allegedly found, and these were discovered at the parish church of Saint-Germain-en-Laye, and these were reburied inside of a new casket between the altar of the church on the 10th of September 1824. There were plans by George IV to one day create a monument inside the church for James II, but this never happened, and Queen Victoria did this inside the chapel where his viscera remained. King James's reign over England, Scotland and Ireland was rather disastrous. He was a king who was forced off of his throne because of the fact he alienated his subjects, because of his reforms and religious views, and he marginalised many powerful figures inside of England. After they had enough of James, they approached a foreign power to come and stage an invasion, and James II was forced off the throne, and he was exiled out of his own kingdom. It was a strange period of time, known as the Glorious Revolution, for the fact that very few people succumbed to any death with the king's ousting from power. But during another revolution, the French Revolution, the remains and corpse of James II were attacked and was removed and dumped somewhere, probably in a common grave, as anything which was associated with monarchy was attacked at this time, even if it didn't represent the French monarchy. The fate of James II's corpse remains a mystery today, despite the fact that following his death most of his organs, including his heart and brain, were taken and distributed to different places and churches. James II, probably in death, dreamed of his body being repatriated back to England, where he presumed he would have been interred alongside the medieval and Tudor kings and queens in St. George's Chapel in Windsor or at Westminster Abbey. But the reality is that his body went missing and it has never been found. Thank you for watching, and to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. And again, thank you so much for watching.